So a couple of months ago, I started noticing a new effect on websites, and you can see that effect here on my screen. I'm visiting the Clair.com website, and as you can see, when I hover over these cards, this shimmer dot background, just appears as a background on these cards, and it just looks amazing, in my opinion. And I know that other people are enjoying this as well, really much. We have other examples as well. So for example, the Web.com website is also using it. As you can see, they are using it as a background for their logo. And yeah, we have this shimmer dot background here as well. By the way, all of these links will be in the description. We have this Vercel.com website as well. And as you can see here, they're using it for these logos. And we have the Cryptome Voice website where they're using this for these placeholders. And yeah, it just looks amazing. And I started thinking that why this effect is not a web design trend already. It looks really nice. Many people enjoy it, many people like it, but why we don't see it more often on websites? And I came to a conclusion that it's because it's not really accessible. You cannot just go into your favorite no-code website builder and just say, okay, I want to create a shimmer dot background, and you just create it, because that's just not possible. You have to know how to code, you have to hire a developer or something like that, and that's not easy to do. So I thought that maybe I could make it accessible for everyone by creating a fully customizable framework component that you can just copy and paste onto your website, and you'll have basically the same effect. Let me just show you. Here we have the demo website. This is built in Framer, and we are basically gonna recreate these hover cards with this shimmer dot background. We're gonna also use it as a background for our logo, and we're gonna also create a website hero that basically has this background, and it appears really nicely as we load the website. So in this video, we're gonna learn all of these things. And yeah, I hope that you will like this. My name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. Okay, so here we are in Framer. We're going to create the first example here, which is going to be the hover card effect. But before we do anything, I want to tell you that you can remix this project with the link in the description, and I highly encourage you to do that, because I have these pages on the left panel. You're able to come here and check out all the examples. So for example, here we are in the card hover folder. Each folder has a starter and a finished page. You're gonna go to the starter in each folder, and you'll see basically the same thing that I see here, and you'll be able to follow along with me. You're gonna have all the resources that you might need, for example, in this case, these two SVG files. So without any further ado, let's get started. I'm gonna go to this other page and start creating this hover card effect. So if we come here, you can see that we are going to basically create this, and you can see that we have a few elements here. First of all, we have this logo, then we have this text which appears on hover, and then we have the background. So first, why not just prepare the logo and the text component for this card? So I'm gonna just get these two SVGs, I'm gonna paste it into this main section here. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna select both of these, and then I'm gonna press Option, Command and Enter on my keyboard. So this will basically group them together or wrap them in a common frame. This is now called stack. I'm gonna rename this to logo. And so now the width is set to fill. We can set it back to fit content, and then the height can also stay fit content. And so now what I wanna do is I wanna make sure that these are right on top of each other. The way I can do that is by changing one of them to absolute positioning. And so I'm gonna go here, change the absolute positioning. I can keep all of these pins activated. And then basically that's it. That's all we need to do here. We're gonna be able to just change their opacity to show the one that we need. So for example, here we can keep the outline on opacity 1, and we can change the opacity to 0 on the fill version. And so now we only see the outline of the logo. So this will be the first element that we need. And then I'm gonna hit T on my keyboard and press on the canvas. And then I'm gonna just write Firebase. This will be the text. It will be a little bit smaller, and I'm going to also make sure to change the weight to medium. And so this will be right below the logo. So again, we're going to need to group them together or wrap them in a frame. So Option Command and Enter, and then we're going to again set these width to fit content and height to fit content as well. And then the direction will be set to vertical. So these are now right below each other. Okay, so now here we can change this height to fixed. We can increase it a little bit. We're going to have around 104. And then this logo will be on the top of this text, so right here. And then the text will be at the bottom. We can achieve this by going to the stack and then change the distribute to start. So now, as you can see, the logo starts from the top. And then to make sure that this Firebase text is at the bottom, I'm just going to change its position to absolute and then activate this bottom pin with 0 value. And now this is what we have. And so basically I can rename this tag. This will be called logo plus text. And I can turn this into a component, because this component will have two states. As you can see, one state will be when we only see the logo in an outline mode, and the other state will be the hover state when we see the fill version of the logo and then the text as well. So let's just rename this to default and then hide this text. So I'm going to just change the opacity to 0. But I'm going to also add the style here, which is user select none, just to make sure that we cannot select it, because even though the opacity is 0, it is still there on the page. So if this is set to user select auto, we can still, see that the cursor changes to the selector. So we hide the text, and then what we do is we change this logo, because somehow we have to make sure that it is in the center. So here we can just select the distribute center option here, and now it is centered. And we can click this variant to create another variant. This will be the hover. And here we can make sure that now again the distribute is at start, and then the Firebase is shown. So that's pretty great. And then what we also have to make sure is that the fill is opacity 1, and then the outline is opacity 0. And basically now we have the default and the hover variants of this component. So that's all we have to do here. We can go back to this page now. And so now we can actually get our background component, the shimmer.background, and we can optimize that for our card. So we're going to go to framer.university. We're going to click this search and then search for shimmer.component. And here it is. As you can see, we have some description here, but what we have to do is we have to click this copy component, and then basically we just have to paste it in right here, and it will appear right next to our component that we created previously. And so I'm just going to make sure to change the color of the component and customize it with these properties on the right panel. So I can either have circle or square shape. I'm going to change the size here to a little bit smaller one, so the squares are going to be 2 size. The gap will be 4, so it is a bit more dense. And then the contrast will be decreased. I'm going to also decrease the contrast here to -5. The speed can stay 15, that's the speed of the shimmering basically. As you can see, if we increase that, the shimmering is just happens a bit faster. 15 works fine. And then by default, these are colored gray, but we can add any color that we want to here with this property. And I'm just going to basically go ahead and get these colors from the logo. So we're going to have each of the color. And by the way, when we add these 3 colors here, each of them have equal distribution. If you want to have more of a certain color, we can just add it again. So we can have multiple of the same color, and then it will appear more often on this component. So now we basically have the shimmer.component set up for our use case, and we can start creating the actual card with its hover state. So first of all, I'm going to wrap this shimmer.component into frame by pressing Command and Enter on my keyboard. I'm going to rename this to shimmer.mask, because this frame will actually be used as a mask for the shimmer dot, because as you can see, when we hover over these cards, this shimmer dot is actually animated in from the center, and we can achieve that by animating a mask on the component. So I'm going to add the mask to the shimmer.mask frame. So styles, mask, and it will be a radial mask, and we're going to customize it a little bit later. For now, I'm just going to make sure that the shimmer dot here within is pinned to all sides. So all of these pins are activated and set to 0. So now if I change this, you will see that the shimmer dot background is also changing with it. And so now we can wrap these into a common stack. So I'm going to select both of them, press Option Command and Enter on my keyboard. And then we can set a fixed height of 500 for now. And then the height can be, let's say, 300, maybe a little bit less width, maybe 400. And then to make sure that this shimmer dot mask is in the background, we can change it to absolute positioning, and then again change all of these pins to 0. And then I'm going to also remove its Z index. And so now it is truly in the background. So what we can do now is we can basically turn this into a component. But before that, I'm going to rename this to Firebase. And then I'm going to also make sure that it has a nice border. So I'm going to add this gray border to it. And yeah, now it's perfect. So now we have this. Now all we have to do is just to animate it. So I'm going to turn it into a component. Because as you might already know, the easiest way to animate something is to turn it into a component, then create two variants, and then just connect those two with interactions. So basically that's it. That's what we're going to do here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to rename this to default. So the primary variant will be default. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up the, the default state here. So basically the logo plus text will be in its default state as well. And then what we're going to do here is we're going to make sure that the shimmer.background is still visible here. We're going to change it later to opacity 0, but I want to make sure that it is still visible because we're going to tweak the mask a little bit now. So the shimmer.mask is selected, and we're going to go to the mask here on the right panel. And so we're going to set up the mask in a way that then we can animate from that position to reveal it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it a little bit bigger like this. And then I'm going to add multiple points to this. So I'm going to add a point here and then here. Basically, I can select all of these points and change their alpha value. And so if it's, for example, 0, it means that on that point, the frame is not visible and the contents of the frame is not visible. So if all of these are set to 0, the background will just disappear. So this will be 100 here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to just basically animate this like this. And that's how we're going to reveal it. First, I'm just going to move this to here. This one will be right here. And then it will be 0. I think that's the setup that we need here. And then we can go on to the hover state and then animate this in. But first, as I said, I'm going to change the shimmer dot as well to opacity 0. The reason I'm doing this is because then we're going to also add transitions to the shimmer dot mask and the shimmer dot component, because we want to make sure that we animate them a little bit differently when we go into the hover state and when we go back. But basically, we're doing that because, as you can see, when we go off the card, as you can see, the shimmer dot background is not scaling back into the center, it just disappears. And then when we hover again, then it goes from the center and grows from there. And basically that's why we need to play around with these transitions. So now that everything is set up, we can add a hover state here, and we can change all of the things that needed to be changed. So logo text, variant hover, and then the shimmer dot is set to opacity 1. And then the mask is also changed. So this here is changed to 100. and then it is animated to a little bit to the right, and then this will be animated as well, but then this will change to 40. And so in theory, this hover state will look really nice now. As you can see, it's not bad, but I want to see more of that movement from the center. So maybe here on the default variant, we can make sure that this point here is a little bit closer to the center. Let's see what happens if we do that. Let's go ahead and preview this again. And yeah, as you can see now, it's much better. And now we can see that when we leave this card, the background just goes back. And so, you know, it might be fine for you, but I want to make sure that when I leave this component, it just basically disappears, just loses its opacity and does not, you know, shrink back. So if you don't want to, you know, take a look at how I do that, you can just skip to the next part of this video, but I'm going to show you that right now. But before everything, I can just change the transition here to a little bit slower one, just to make sure that it appears a bit slower. Really great. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a transition to the shimmer.mask and the shimmer.component as well. So transition, and here transition as well. So basically what these transition properties do on these layers is they specify how a layer should be animated into that state. So for example, when we take a look at the shimmer.mask here, it is specifying how it will go back to the default state. So here what we have to do is we just need to delay it by 0.2. But when we do this, we have to go to the hover state and then take a look at the transition here as well, because it will be changed here as well, because everything we do on the primary variant is also done on all of the variants. So now when we hover over this, the background is delayed a little bit, and that's something that we don't want, so we can just change it back to 0. And so now it is really great. As you can see, now when we go back to the default, it will be nicely delayed, and the mask is not animated right away, only the opacity of the shimmer dot. However, what I want to make sure is that when we go to the hover, the shimmer dot opacity is actually instantly animated. So now, in theory, yeah, everything will be good. Maybe when we go back, we can make sure that the shimmer dot is animated a little bit faster. So maybe 800 here, and maybe, 800 here as well. So now basically we have this effect. It nicely, animates in. It's a little bit slower animation into the hover state, but then when we leave the card, it disappears really fast. We go back to the default state really, really fast. So I think it looks really nice like this. Now we can go on to the next example that I'm going to show you, which is the logo. So basically we're going to just create a logo like this. You can take your logo as an example and just make sure that we have this shimmer dot effect in the background of that logo. So first of all, what we're going to need is we're going to need the SVG for your logo, because all you have to notice when we deal with websites is that we can only work with rectangles. We cannot, maybe we can also like round its corners and then we have, a little bit different shape, but there's no way that we can create a shape like this. And so what we have to do is we have to get the SVGs. So I'm going to go to Figma. As you can see, I already prepared all the things that we need. First, we need a fill version of the logo. As you can see, it has a fill color, and then we also have an outline version which only has a stroke. So basically, I just selected these and then went ahead and exported them as SVGs. Once we have that, we can go ahead and get the shimmer dot component again. And again, we can customize the size, the gap, We can also add new colors. So maybe I want to have my accent color, then maybe a different blue, and then I can add more colors like white, a little bit darker gray, and yeah, basically I have something like this. And so now what I can do is I can make sure that this shimmer dot background is only displayed on the area of my logo. So the way I can do that is I can go to the shimmer dot and then I can apply a mask to that. So styles, mask, and then we're going to use this image option here. And then we're going to just upload our field version. So this is what we're going to upload here. So I can just go to my Finder and drag and drop this field version. I said, yeah, I have to wait until it loads. So I can just drag and drop this. And then as you can see, now the background is only visible on the area of my logo, which is really nice. So now what I can do is I can also get my outline version of the logo because I want to add some outline to this. So I can just make it a little bit smaller, like 300. And then what I can do is I can go ahead to the folder and just drag and drop this outline version. Here we have it. And now again, I just have to make sure that these are right on top of each other. I can do that really easily by wrapping them in a common stack, renaming this to logo. This is the outline version here. And again, one of these will be set to absolute positioning and it will be right on top of the other one. So I'm just gonna also make sure that this outline is 300 by 300. And now we have the logo. It also has this little outline and it has this shimmer dot background effect, which looks really great. And since we are in Framer, we can spice this up quite a bit. We can turn this whole thing into a 3D logo. I'm going to show this right now. I already created it. It takes a few seconds for it to load. But as you can see, here is the 3D version of this logo. What I did is I just basically took a look at the 3D version. I imagined it in my head and I was like, what different shapes I need in order to create that. And I realized that these are the different shapes that I need in order to make the 3D version of this logo. And so I created a bunch of these building blocks and then I just made sure to assemble this whole thing in the 3D space by using 3D transforms in Framer. If you want to learn those, you can go ahead and watch my 3D transform crash course. I explain everything about them in that video, so you're gonna be able to basically do the same thing with your logo if you watch that video. And as you can see, I have this 3D logo here. I can go ahead and change the rotation with 3D transforms here, and you can see that it is truly 3D. I can rotate it around and basically I can do anything with it. However, what you notice is that when I have this as a first element here and I preview it, it takes a couple of seconds for it to load. And it's because when we are using a bunch of these shimmer dot components on the page and they appear at the same time, it can be a bit heavy for the website. So I don't really recommend using so many. Like here in this case, I have like, I don't know, more than 10 probably in the view. So just make sure to do not overuse them because then your site will load a little bit slower. Okay, so our last example is the hero section. So we're going to basically create this hero section that we can see right here. So as we're loading the site, we basically see the same kind of appear effect that we had on the cards, but it happens when we load the website. So you might think, Nandi, how we can do that? And yeah, I'm going to show you how you can do that right now. So basically we have again this finished and starter. Just make sure to go to the starter and follow along with me. So in this one we just have these two text layers. I just added a really simple text appear effect to these. As you can see, here it is on the right panel. You can just customize it really easily and you have a really amazing text appear effect like this. And so now all we have to do is just to add the shimmer dot background effect. So I'm just gonna get again the shimmer dot background. So as you can see here it is, it's already set up properly. All the colors and all the sizes are set. So all we have to do is just to place it in our hero section and then change its positioning to absolute and then set all these pins to 0. And so now we have this shimmer dot in the background, which is not really in the background because as you can see, it is above the text. So I just have to place it right here and now it's going to be in the background, but we still need to have that appear effect somehow. And so we're going to use a little trick here in order to achieve that. We're going to wrap this shimmer dot in a frame. So I'm going to press Option Command and Enter on my keyboard. This wraps it in a stack. This will again need to be set to absolute positioning, all pins set to 0. I said all pins, so I just have to make sure that this height is set to fixed. That's how I can make sure that each of these pins are set to 0. And then I can see that something is not cool here. It's probably because the shimmer dot needs to be again set to 0 pins right here. And now as you can see, it will be responsive everywhere. Then again, this Z index will be removed here, so it's not getting above the text. And so this will be renamed to background. And so I'm going to turn this into a component. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a mask to this variant. So this is the default and styles mask. And this will be again the same radial mask. The settings will be really similar to what we had in the card hover. So we are adding a few of these points. This is 0. This is going to be 100. This is going to be 0. We're going to start from the center. So these are moved to the center. This can also be changed to 0. And then the trick here is that we're going to have different variants. So I'm going to add a new one. This will be appear. So this here will have the different mask setting, and I'm just going to change this so it moves to the right. And then this moves here and changes to 40, let's say. And so now we have this. We can make the transition a little bit slower, like 100. And now what will happen is basically nothing. So when we preview the default, we just see nothing. However, if we connect it to the appear, and the trigger is appear, and we have a 1 second delay, what will happen is that when this default appears on the page, it will wait 1 second and then animate into the appear variant. As you can see, as I reload, nicely animates into the appear. So now, if you take a look at this, it waits 1 second and then nicely animates in. And we can play around with this delay value, so we don't have to wait 1 second, we can just wait 0.2, let's say. And so we have this nice appear effect on our website, which, nicely animates in this shimmer dot background. By the way, we used the same technique for this Are You Ready website loader animation. We just created a bunch of, variants of the component, and the interactions are set on appear trigger. And yeah, you can find this tutorial as well in the description. So yeah, basically that's it for this video. Make sure to check out Framer.university because I have a bunch of more remixes, components, tutorials just like this. And basically all of them are free, so they're gonna probably help you along your Framer journey. So yeah, that is for today's video. Make sure to like it, subscribe for more, and I'm gonna see you in the next one.